This is Doug McIntyre. I'm with Dave Calloway. We are both editors of Climate Crisis 247. And today we're going to talk about the fact that the Mississippi River is going in the wrong direction. You've got people down at the far end of the Delta, so it's just shy of the city. And they can't get fresh water part of the time. And the salt water is starting to corrode parts of homes and businesses there. Dave, this isn't really unusual, is it? It's not like this is just Mississippi.
No, I mean, it's happening, Doug, to rivers all over the world. We're seeing even the East River in New York, but rivers generally are drying up, and it's creating all sorts of climate implications. A lot of them are trade related. For instance, the Rhine in Germany, right, is drying up. It's a major artery of German trade, causing all sorts of problems. The Seine in France, Panama Canal, right? We've talked about what's going on there. The one in Mississippi, the one with the Mississippi is really interesting because it's the largest river in the U.S. It runs the entire length of the country from Minnesota all the way down to New Orleans, and because of the lack of water up top, it's causing it to it's causing the Gulf to move up the river in and around New Orleans, and that creates all sorts of problems. Lack of drinking water is one. But the salt corrosion is probably an even more immediate problem because it's going to get into all of the drinking water pipes that feed New Orleans. New Orleans is below sea level, as you know, and it's really quite an immediate crisis this spring.
You mentioned New York City. I've had the pleasure of tasting the water in the East River when the tide comes in and it's salty, and apparently it's salty sometimes all the way up to Poughkeepsie. And it's not a joke. It's not, well, I went over and I, tasted water out of the East River. You look at Manhattan, and as everybody knows, it's an island, so it's surrounded by water, but it does have a very limited water supply. So there are metropolitan areas that are very, very large that are on oceans or gulfs where this is going to be a problem. And it brings you around to the question of where do people get fresh drinking water? If it's a problem in New Orleans, if you look out west because of the Colorado and some of the lakes there, the amount of drinking water has dropped a lot. And so it brings me to the question of solutions. In Dubai, they use desalinization for 98% of their drinking water. As the New Orleans problem begins to happen more and more places, can that work?
That's, I think desalinization is a solution. It is not the solution. Here in California, for instance, where I am in Northern California, a couple of years ago, we had basically a 10-year drought. Which is alleviated in the last couple of years. But back then they were talking about ways to pipe water in from other parts of the state because the desalinization plants are too expensive to make and to build. I mean, it's to do desalinization, it's an effort in public investment that is the many states cannot make at this point, including California. And so we're running into serious issues with the lack of water coming out of the Colorado River. Like you cited in the West, it's a terrible, terrible problem. And so, but nobody's building the desalinization plants. In Dubai, it sounds like they've got the wherewithal and the determination to do it. So I would say it is a solution, not the solution. We need a mix of solutions.
Well, let me pause and look at Dubai. Dubai is in the desert, so it has no groundwater. The part of it that's surrounded by water is surrounded by salt water. So they've done this as a matter of necessity. And it's interesting, they also use the water for hydroelectric. All of the power in Dubai is either solar or hydroelectric. Obviously, that's a very rich place. They've been able to make that investment. Are places like California and Louisiana going to have to, the governments have to make expensive decisions like this because, like Dubai, they're out of options?
I think they're down to the point where they're running out of options. Um, like I said, luckily, we've had a couple of winters of heavy rain and the reservoirs are now full. They were 60% empty 3 years ago. And so if we get into another situation like that, we're going to be out of options. And you know how politicians delay stuff, they will. But at the end of the day, we're going to need to do desalination plants along with piping water in from other places. And there's a lot of investors out there, a lot of hedge funds based in New York that are buying land in the West and trying to secure water rights for what they expect is going to be a real squeeze in about 10 years' time.
Yeah. If you look at where you live and you look at the Mississippi, obviously you've got really massive river systems that are drying up. As you go further north, and people don't think about this. This is a problem that's like a 1,500-mile problem. We're just talking about what happens at the very bottom of it. It's like the Amazon. The lifestyles of the people who live on parts of these rivers, they're being ruined. It isn't just in San Francisco and New Orleans. It's hundreds of miles where businesses are disappearing, where people can't get drinking water. So these are problems that are sort of million square miles problems, aren't they?
They really are. I mean, in the Amazon in particular, they're having a drought this year, and the water's drying up, and it's destroying the way of life for millions of people, not just on the rivers, but that benefit from the rivers. So, the Mississippi's our main waterway of trade in the U.S. And, as it dries up and the water problems persist, you're right. I mean, entire communities, oh my goodness, St. Louis, Minneapolis, New Orleans, all sorts of cities are built on the Mississippi River. And, they're going to have to figure out what to do when they get to those water situations. It's funny. We're still kind of at the denial phase, Doug. There's a bar in New Orleans which has designed a cocktail drink with salt in it for when the salt comes. So they're making fun of the issue there, but it's they're kind of laughing in the face of a very real crisis that they're going to face very soon.
Well, I'm going to give you the final word on this, but my final word is that this is not something the federal government is going to be able to dodge. It may not be today or tomorrow, but as we move out 5 or 10 years, it's going to cost the federal government hundreds of billions of dollars to solve these problems, and there will not be a choice.
There will not be a choice. Yeah, we're moving in the whole climate crisis. We're moving from an era of where there is a choice to invest and work to help develop solutions to an era, not too far away, maybe a decade away, when we're going to start to not have choices on things that we do. And it's going to manifest itself in taxes, and it's going to manifest itself in loss of lifestyle and stuff for millions of people, relocation, that type of stuff. And it's going to be painful.
Yeah. Good to see you. Talk to you soon.
All right.